Near the edge of a quiet valley, where the sky seemed to lean low and gentle over the land, a soft blue dusk rested over everything like a silken veil. And in that tender, fading light, the world grew very still and very calm. A small pathway, worn smooth by years of wandering feet and soft animal paws, wound through the tall grass. And along that path walked a quiet soul named Orin, moving with unhurried steps, as though there were nothing in existence but the slow rhythm of walking and breathing and seeing how the evening turned to night. The air was warm with the last lingering sigh of the day, and every now and then a mild, velvety breeze drifted down from the hills, carrying with it the scent of wildflowers and the whisper of distant leaves. Above the valley hung a pale, pearled moon, not yet bright, wrapped in a faint halo of silver cloud, and the first stars were beginning to shimmer into being, one by one, like droplets of light awakening in a deep, indigo sea. The pathway led through a meadow that stretched out in all directions, soft and gently rolling, like an enormous welcoming blanket spread across the earth. The grasses there were not all green. Some shone with traces of gold and silver, catching the last light, and others held a faint glow of their own, as though tiny crystals were hidden at their roots. Fireflies drifted lazily among the stems, their lights pulsing in slow, steady patterns, never hurried, never abrupt. Each glow a warm amber note in a silent, soothing song. Overhead, small luminous moths with wings like pale silk floated in lazy circles, tracing invisible spirals in the air, as if the whole evening were dreaming itself gently into existence. And everything living within it was a part of that dream. Orin paused and closed their eyes for a moment, letting the soft breeze touch their face, letting the quiet of the valley wrap around them like a comforting shawl. The hush here was not empty. It was full of subtle sounds, blending together into a tender, endless murmur. The faint rustle of grass as it swayed, the distant melodious trickle of hidden water somewhere else, the soft chirr of tiny insects singing to one another in rhythms that had carried on since before memory. All of it formed a gentle tapestry of sound, steady and soothing, without edges or interruption, as if time itself had slowed to a gentle, unbroken flow. As Orin opened their eyes again, the path invited them onward, curving toward a stand of tall, luminous trees at the far edge of the meadow. These trees grew close together, their trunks slender and smooth, their bark pale and almost pearly under the moonlight. Their leaves were small and delicate, shaped like tiny stars, and from within them there emanated a soft, diffuse radiance, a quiet green-gold glow that lit the forest from within as day gradually surrendered to night. The glow was never harsh, never bright enough to startle. It was the kind of light that made shadows gentle and safe, that softened everything it touched, turning the forest into a place of tranquil mystery and deep, abiding peace. Moving forward, Orin stepped beneath the canopy of these glowing leaves, and the air changed in the most tender way. It grew cooler, but not cold, like the sensation of dipping fingers into water that has been kissed by moonlight. The scent of flowers deepened, mingling now with the fragrance of damp earth and moss, and a faint hint of something sweet and distant, like ripened fruit resting somewhere high in the branches. Underfoot, the path transformed from packed earth to a soft carpet of moss and fallen leaves, each step sinking slightly, quietly, leaving only the gentlest trace behind. The forest did not resist the presence of this traveler. Instead, it seemed to lean closer, embracing each quiet footfall, welcoming Aaron into its heart. Deeper into the forest, tiny floating lights appeared, drifting slowly between the trunks in graceful, unhurried arcs. They were not fireflies. They shone with a softer, more constant glow, like little droplets of starlight that had decided to wander close to the ground. Some hovered near eye level, pulsing faintly, their light expanding and contracting in a lazy rhythm. Others hung higher up, caught among the branches, gently swaying as if cradled by invisible threads. Wherever they gathered, they formed gentle constellations between the trees, turning the forest into a cathedral of gleaming points, warm and serene. The forest was full of peaceful creatures, moving with the same quiet, unhurried grace. A small silver-furred fox, with eyes the color of twilight, padded silently across the path, pausing for a moment to look at Aaron with a calm, curious gaze, not startled, not wary, simply sharing this tranquil space. Then it moved on, its tail trailing a faint shimmer, vanishing into the soft undergrowth. A pair of deer, their coats dappled with patterns of light, as if they had been born from the forest's glow, stepped delicately through the trees, their hooves barely making a sound upon the moss. They bent their elegant necks to drink from a small, unseen stream, the gentle splash and lapping blending effortlessly into the murmuring quiet. Further along, the gentle music of flowing water grew clearer, a liquid thread winding through the stillness. The trees parted, and the forest opened onto the bank of a slow, clear river that wandered through the valley like a ribbon of glass. The surface of the water caught the glow of the floating lights, the shimmer of the moon, the soft radiance from the trees, and folded all of it into itself, so that it seemed to flow with soft light instead of water. Here and there, the current curled lazily around smooth stones, forming tiny, swirling eddies. But there was no rush, no urgency. Everything moved at a pace so gentle it seemed almost still, like a long, contented sigh of the earth. Aaron knelt at the river's edge and dipped one hand into the water. It was cool and silky against their skin, the kind of cool that calms and soothes, as though it were carrying away even the quietest remnants of worry or strain. Tiny, luminous fish swam near the surface, their scales reflecting the lights above in hues of soft blue and pale gold and faint lavender. They moved in slow, looping patterns, circling and weaving around one another, forming shifting shapes that were never sharp, always rounded and flowing, like thoughts wandering beneath. Above the water, rising in thin, delicate veils that curled and drifted touched the skin like a breath, cool and feather-light, wrapping around Aaron's shoulders and face and hair with the faintest caress. It carried the scent of the river, clean and clear, mingled with the scent of flowers growing along the banks. Soft petals, rose, lavender, moon-pale blossoms with faintly glowing centers, opened slowly along the water's edge, their stems swaying only a little in the easy air, as if they, too, were drowsy and content. Beside the river lay a smooth, flat stone, warmed through by the memory of the day's sun. Aaron sat upon it, feeling the gentle warmth rise through the fabric of their clothing, meeting the coolness of the air, so that the body relaxed into a perfect harmony of temperature, neither too warm nor too cool, just comfortably in between. The stone seemed shaped perfectly for resting, its edges softly rounded, its surface slightly curved to cradle the body in a natural, effortless embrace. Around it, the grass grew thick and soft, bending and cushioning like a welcoming nest. On the opposite bank, the forest rose again, but here the trees were taller and their trunks wider, their branches reaching outward in graceful arcs. Lantern fruits hung from some of them, round, translucent globes nestled among the leaves, each one containing a soft, steady glow. They swung lightly when the breeze drifted by, not enough to disturb, only enough to send gentle waves of light rolling through the branches. In that light, the patterns of the bark and the veins of the leaves stood out with delicate clarity, each line and curve forming part of a slowly shifting, luminous tapestry. As the evening deepened, the sky above the valley darkened to a rich, velvety indigo. The moon brightened, climbing gently higher, and stars spread across the sky in an endless scattering of soft white and pale silver, some clustered in patterns, others resting alone. They did not glitter sharply. Instead, their light was diffused, like distant lanterns seen through gauze. The sky looked deep and soft, like a vast, comforting canopy stretched tenderly over the world, and the valley seemed to exhale into the calm of it, settling even more. Aaron rose from the stone and followed the curve of the river, where the path had become a shimmering strip of pale sand that wound along the bank. Each step left a faint imprint, softly illuminated by the glow of the nearby lantern fruits and floating lights. And behind those steps, the sand slowly smoothed itself again, as though the valley were gently tucking itself in after every touch. To one side, the forest remained close, leaning over the path with softly arching branches, while to the other side, the river flowed with quiet constancy, its surface occasionally stirred by the lazy splash of a fish coming close to the air, then descending again. In time, the path widened into a small, sandy clearing, right by the river's bend, a place where the water formed a calm, shallow pool before continuing onward. The pool's surface was as smooth as glass, a perfect mirror for the sky and the surrounding glow. Here, the floating lights gathered more densely, drifting low above the water, so that their reflections formed another shimmering river below. It was as though two gentle currents flowed side by side, one of one of light. Nearby, a cluster of broad-leaved plants spread like open fans, their surfaces catching droplets of mist that sparkled softly in the glow. At the edge of this pool, nestled into a natural hollow in the earth, was a resting place made of living roots and moss. A great tree had grown here long ago, its roots weaving together to form a cradle-like shape, rounded and comfortable, filled with a thick layer of moss that looked as soft as velvet and felt even softer when touched. Tiny, glowing fungi grew along the edges of the roots, each one no larger than a fingertip, their warm light illuminating the hollow from within. It was as though the forest itself had shaped a gentle, protective nest beside the waters, a place meant for quiet rest. Erin lowered themselves into this moss-lined cradle, feeling the earth curve up around their sides, supporting every part of the body with steady, tender strength. The moss yielded perfectly, firm enough to hold, soft enough to embrace. Around the resting place, the roots arched like sheltering arms, creating a sense of enclosure that was not confining, but deeply secure, like being held by something vast and kind. Overhead, the branches of the great tree formed a canopy through which the stars could be seen in scattered glimpses, their diffused light blending with the gentle glow of the fungi and the floating lights. A soft, rhythmic sound rose from the river's bend, the quiet lapping of water against stone, repeating and repeating in a slow, soothing cycle. Each gentle wave touched the edge of the pool, then withdrew, then returned again, like a calm, regular breathing that went on without effort. Mixed with this was the delicate, chiming music of water droplets falling from overhanging leaves, one by one, into the pool's surface, each drop creating a tiny circle that widened and faded, only to be followed by another. These circles overlapped and merged, just as thoughts might drift in and blend, until everything became one continuous, quiet motion. From somewhere in the branches above, a soft flutter of wings could be heard, and then a small, feathery creature settled nearby. It was an owl, but not like any ordinary owl. Its feathers shimmered faintly with iridescent hues, as if they had been brushed by starlight. Its eyes were large, rounded, and peaceful, glowing with the same gentle luminescence as the lantern fruits. It perched on a low branch, tilting its head slightly, observing the sleeping nest below, not as a watchful guard, but as a serene companion, present and accepting. Its presence added to the sense of safety that permeated the clearing, like a whisper that nothing needed to be done, that everything was already all right. Around the resting hollow, the forest's quiet deepened, but it was the kind of quiet that is full of life, continuing in soft, subtle ways. Tiny insects moved along the bark, their footsteps too small to hear. Leaves shifted slightly as the mild breeze passed through, producing faint, almost musical rustles. Somewhere in the distance, a night bird called in a low, melodic tone, its song slow and spaced out, each note lingering in the air like a droplet of sound. No voice rose above another, no sound cut through the calm. All were woven together into a fabric of gentle presence, steady and soothing. the night unfolded, the floating lights above the pool began to drift higher, slowly, slowly, gathering toward the branches of the taller trees. They did not rush skyward. Instead, they rose in lazy spirals, circling and climbing, as though they had all the time in the world. Some of them settled among the leaves, while others continued upward, up past the treetops, into the open air. There they mingled with the stars, becoming indistinguishable from them, as if the border between earth and sky had grown soft and porous, allowing light to wander between both realms as it pleased. Far above, on the invisible currents of the night air, shapes moved with a grace so smooth they hardly seemed to move at all. Great, gentle creatures glided overhead, their forms faintly luminous against the velvet sky. They resembled whales, but made entirely of soft, glowing mist and starlight, their enormous bodies drifting as serenely as clouds in a summer breeze. Their slow, sweeping fins left trails of silent, sparkling dust that faded gently behind them. They swam through the sky in long, looping arcs, sometimes passing in front of the moon so that its light curved around them, turning them into drifting halos. These sky whales emitted no sound, yet their presence could be felt like a deep, humming calm resonating through the night. Their movements were unhurried and certain, as though they had always been here and would always be here, crossing the same peaceful paths above the valley again and again. Something about their endless drifting lent the world a sense of continuity, as if everything that existed was part of an ongoing, timeless dream that would never be disturbed. On the forest floor, lights continued to glow in soft, warm colors. Petals slowly opened further, then paused, as though reaching a perfect state of bloom, and then deciding to rest there. Leaves turned their faces toward the moon, drinking in the silver light, while others curled slightly at the edges, settling themselves for the night. In small burrows beneath roots and stones, gentle creatures curled up together, their breaths slowing, their bodies sinking into the welcoming softness of the earth. All around the valley, life was entering a shared rhythm of rest, each being easing into stillness in its own way, creating a quiet chorus of slowing, calming presence. Erin lay in the moss-lined hollow, feeling the shape of the earth beneath them, the cradle of roots around them, the canopy of branches overhead, the river beside them, the sky above. The world did not ask anything here. It simply offered a place to be, a place where the soft sounds and gentle lights flowed together in an endless, lulling continuity. The warmth of the stone beneath the earth still rose faintly, mingling with the cool touch of night air along the skin, creating that perfect balance that allowed muscles to loosen, thoughts to uncoil, breaths to fall into a steady, easy pace. The fragrance of the forest deepened as the night matured. The scent of night-blooming flowers drifted closer, subtle but distinct. Notes of sweetness without any sharpness, like honey diluted with clear spring water, or petals resting on dew. It mingled with the scent of moss and damp bark, the faint, earthy perfume of soil that had been warmed in the day, and now cooled under the stars. Every inhalation drew this bouquet of calm into the body. Every exhalation released it back into the world, as if breathing itself were a gentle exchange with the forest, an invisible, tender conversation between body and earth. Across the river, a family of luminous rabbits emerged from their hidden warren, their fur glowing faintly with pastel hues: soft lavender, pale blue, gentle cream. They hopped slowly along the bank, nibbling at the glowing grasses, their movements small and unhurried. Occasionally, one would pause and lift its head, ears turning towards the soft sounds of water and wind, then return quietly to grazing. Their presence added another layer of tenderness to the scene, a reminder that everything in this valley lived without hurry, without fear, simply trusting the steady rhythm of night and day, of waking and resting. As the hours passed, the moon traced a slow arc across the sky, its light shifting and softening as it moved. Shadows lengthened and changed shape, but always remained gentle, never sharp or dark. The sky whales continued their silent journey, crossing and recrossing the great dome of the heavens. At times, their shimmering forms overlapped, forming delicate patterns of moving light high above, like softly swirling ink in a pool of midnight blue. Occasionally, one of them would tilt slightly, allowing its underside to catch the full glow of the moon, and for a moment it would appear almost translucent, a vast, drifting lantern suspended over the valley. In the distance, beyond the line of trees, the faint silhouettes of rounded hills rose against the sky. Their slopes were covered in fields of long, feathery grass that rippled in the gentle night breeze, like waves in a slow and silent sea. Here and there, scattered clusters of luminous stones dotted the hillsides, each one shining with a steady, low light, like embers that would never burn out. These stones radiated warmth, and creatures gathered near them during the cooler hours, resting beside their gentle glow, sharing in the calm radiance that seemed to seep out into the night air. Back by the river, the clearing remained a sanctuary of stillness. The owl, perched on its branch, half closed its eyes, its chest rising and falling in a slow, steady motion. Its feathers occasionally ruffled with the passing of the breeze, then smoothed themselves again. The glowing fungi along the roots pulsed in faint, regular rhythms, like 1,000 tiny heartbeats syncing with the deep, quiet pulse of the forest. The floating lights above the pool were fewer now, most having drifted upward to join the stars. But those that remained shone a little more steadily, as if concentrating their light to keep the clearing gently illuminated through the heart of the night. The river itself seemed to slow even further, its surface smoothing until only the smallest ripples betrayed the movement beneath. The sounds of its flow grew softer, more distant, like a lullaby sung from the far side of a dream. The pool at the bend, with its mirrored surface, reflected the stars in the branches and the softly glowing fungi, with such clarity that it was easy to imagine that another forest lay just below the water, another sky whale drifting below the surface, Another moon tracing its unhurried path across an inverted sky. Everything above was echoed below, doubling the sense of depth, of endless tranquil space. The valley existed now as a single, seamless comfort. Earth, water, air, and sky, woven together by light and sound and scent, all moving in the slowest, gentlest patterns. There was no urgency in this place, no sudden noises, no harsh edges, no unknown shadows. Every shape was rounded, every sound muffled, every light softened. It was as though the world had retired into a gentle inward breath, holding that breath in a state of complete ease, letting every living thing within it rest and soften. In the moss cradle by the river's bend, the body resting there grew heavier in the most peaceful of ways, each limb sinking comfortably into the soft, resilient surface. The cradle gave back just the right amount of support, as if it had learned, over countless nights, exactly how to hold those who lay within it. The roots remained steady, their curves forming a natural embrace, creating a sense of being enclosed in a sanctuary of living wood and earth. The forest did not watch with scrutiny, it simply surrounded and held, steady and unwavering. The air had cooled further, but the warmth from the earth and the glowing fungi balanced it perfectly. Whenever the breeze passed over the river and through the clearing, it brushed softly against skin and leaf and fur, bringing with it the faintest hints of moisture and mist, like a cool hand laid gently against a warm brow. Then the air would still again, and warmth would slowly wrap back around everything it touched. This gentle alternation, coolness and warmth, warmth and coolness, settled into a rhythm as soothing as breathing, as reassuring as a heartbeat. As deeper night enfolded the valley, the colors around grew even more muted, softening into shades of blue and silver and dusky green. The glowing elements, the fungi, the lantern fruits, the luminous rabbits, the floating lights, seemed brighter by contrast. But even their brightness was never intense. It remained a warm, steady glow, like the memory of daylight rather than daylight itself. Tiny dewdrops formed along the edges of leaves and the tips of grasses, catching and bending the light into countless tiny, gentle sparkles. These dewdrops rested there, perfectly still, tiny worlds suspended in the quiet, until morning would eventually come to wake them. Far away from this moment, far away from this deep, unfolding rest. In this gentle darkness, time lost its sharpness and became simply a wide, soft expanse in which nothing needed to be measured. Moments blurred into one another, each one flowing seamlessly into the next, like water in the river, like the slow drift of sky whales overhead. Thoughts, too, if they arose at all, would drift through and dissolve into the surrounding calm, absorbed by the moss, by the roots, by the glowing water, by the deep, star-filled sky. There was no need for stories of what had happened before or what might happen after. There was only this, the tender cradle of the valley at night, the quiet rhythm of breath and heartbeat, the soft sounds and softer lights, the gentle, enduring presence of a world entirely at peace. The owl shifted slightly on its branch, fluffing its feathers and then tucking its head toward its chest, content. The luminous rabbits curled closer together, their glowing fur blending into a single pool of soft light. Their tiny noses nestled against one another in shared warmth. The deer deeper in the forest lay down upon beds of moss and fallen leaves, legs folded beneath them, eyes half closed, ears relaxed, their sides rising and falling in deep, slow breaths. Even the tiny glowing fish in the river seemed to float more slowly, drifting near the bottom, their fins moving in lazy, feather-light strokes. Above, the sky whales glided on, their luminous bodies moving through the constellations, leaving faint trails of shimmering dust that slowly faded into the night, like distant dreams dissolving into sleep. The moon lowered a little toward the horizon, its light softening even more as it passed through the thicker veil of the atmosphere, taking on a warmer, gentler hue. The stars shone steadily, their soft radiance spreading over the valley like a translucent blanket of silver quiet. The valley held its stillness like a precious secret, yet it was a secret generously shared with every creature resting within it. Underneath the moss and soil, roots spread out in intricate networks, intertwining and touching one another, carrying the slow, silent messages of the earth, messages of growth and rest, of day and night, of endless cycles repeating in comforting patterns. In this hidden network, the trees and plants and fungi all participated in a shared rhythm, a shared knowledge that everything was connected, that everything rested together. In that deep, shared rest, the entire valley seemed to breathe as one. The river's soft murmur matched the rustle of leaves, which matched the quiet rise and fall of sleeping chests, which matched the silent glide of sky whales. Everything was synchronized in an unspoken harmony, a lullaby sung without words, carried in light and sound and the feel of the air. The world had wrapped itself in its own embrace, and it would remain that way as the night continued its slow, gentle passage. Eventually, the horizon far beyond the hills would think about lightning, ever so slightly, a hint of dawn considering its approach. But the thought was distant, like the faintest echo of future melody, too far away to disturb this moment. For now the night remained whole and undisturbed, a vast, tender space in which rest deepened and deepened, layer upon layer, like sinking through clouds of softness into an even softer center. The moss cradle continued to hold the resting body in perfect stillness. The roots curved around in a protective arc, the soft glow around the hollow forming a cocoon of light and shadow. The air remained gentle, the scent of flowers and earth continuing to drift slowly. The sounds of the river and leaves and distant, sleepy calls of night creatures, blending and blending until they became not separate sounds, but one continuous, lulling hush. Each breath drawn in carried that hush deeper. Each breath released let go of anything that did not belong to this peace. In the tender hush of the valley, in the glow of the softly shining trees and the dim silver moon, in the presence of the gentle creatures and the silent sky whales drifting above. Everything settled into complete ease. The world here had no sharp corners, no sudden movements, no demands. It was a place where warmth and coolness, scent and sound, light and darkness all existed in perfect balance, wrapping around every living being like the softest of blankets, like the calmest of waters, like the most loving of arms. In this place of endless safety, in this cradle of earth and sky, in this dreamlike valley, where every leaf and stone and ripple of water seemed to hum with quiet reassurance. The night invited rest to deepen and deepen, to sink past all remnants of strain or effort, to become pure, silent, sheltered stillness. The valley held that stillness with infinite patience, content to keep watch as long as needed, content to remain gentle and kind. You are safe, you are held, you may rest now, sleep.